Hello, my name is Jim Barton and I'm a field engineer with solo.io. In this short video, I'll provide a tutorial on configuring an external authorization server using the Istio developer portal from solo.io. So why is this something you might be interested in? Well, a lot of organizations are moving toward Istio to help with managing and observing what's going on in the internals of their Kubernetes deployments. Istio has a robust feature set to address these kinds of east-west traffic concerns. In fact, we're huge Istio fans at Solo, but we're also experts in building Envoy-based edge gateways like our Glue product. So we're aware that while enterprises might like to leverage Istio's Ingress gateway as a full gateway solution, it's not full-featured out of the box. So let's consider this question. What if there were a way to enhance the Ingress gateway to add easy-to-use north-south features like rate limiting and external authorization? That's the question we'll explore in this tutorial. Specifically, we'll explore Solo's Istio developer portal and how you can use it to configure an external auth server to manage the publication of APIs, API policies, and client identity. So let's start with some prerequisites. First, we assume that you've walked through the developer portal setup guide. So we can take a look at that here. And you'll notice there are actually two setup documents here, one for Glue and another for Istio's Ingress gateway. So Glue is Solo's open core product that acts as a dedicated cloud-native API gateway. And since both Glue and Istio are based on the Envoy proxy, the Istio dev portal is able to share a single code base with the Glue dev portal. So that's good news. But in this exercise, we're specifically focusing on the Istio dev portal. And so we're using Istio 1.7 and also the latest version of the dev portal itself. So that's the first prerequisite. For the second prerequisite, let's take a look at the startup guides here. So you'll notice that that there are three parts to this guide. We're only going to focus on the first two here, and then we'll be building out some features after we walk through the first two parts of this. So in part one, we've deployed the standard pet store app to our cluster, and we've created an API document that's based on the Open API schema for that service. So take a look at VS Code. Here's what we have for the API document. So this just consumes the Swagger interface, the Open API interface for the pet store app, and it exposes 4 endpoints out from that app. We've also then put those together into an API product. So the API product is another custom resource that defines things like routing rules for the service and how to get to it, and also it also defines some of the policies that we'll be getting to later in this exercise. So then for part two of the setup, so we created an API document. We've used an API product to consume that and package it, and then we're also going to create a portal that will be used to publish out this API product. So let's go back to VS Code and just take a look at that document. So you can see there's a lot of custom styling and so forth that you can do here. So if you'd like to be able to customize this interface to have, say, your company's branding, to have documentation, to have custom stylings, that sort of thing, you can define all of this in this portal component, and then Istio Dev Portal will actually build out the portal interface for you. So that's pretty cool. So let's take a look. So we've applied these three components already. We've installed the Pet Store app, and so let's take a look at where we are. So I'm going to switch over here to the admin UI. So over the course of this tutorial, we're going to be basically wearing two hats. The first hat is that of an administrator, someone who has who has set up, who's actually administering the details of this portal, setting up policies, creating users and groups, and that sort of thing. So first we can take a look at the APIs, and these are just going to reflect what we've already seen from the custom components that we use to build the API document and the API product. So here is the Swagger Pet Store endpoints that are available, and we could customize this. We could, we could take some of these away and so forth. But we'll go with the full set of 4 here. There are also some plans where we'll get into more details of how we want to provision policies for this product. What portals we've assigned it to, so you can see we've assigned this to the pet store portal that we've defined, and also users and groups, which gets more to the external authorization config, and so we'll come back to this in just a few minutes. So in addition to the API product, there's also the portal configuration itself. So you can see some of the custom stylings, the logo, the favicon that we put together. We can even do things like custom CSS stylings if you want to go to that level of detail. You can define documentation for external developers who are onboarding to your APIs and that sort of thing. So that's what we have so far. Now let's switch over and take a look at our running environment here. So you can see from K9s here that we have the pet store app that has been deployed, and then you can see a number of pods that are associated with the dev portal itself. So here's the admin server, which we've just been taking a look at that web interface. There's the core dev portal component itself, which actually watches the Kubernetes CRDs and takes action based on changes that occur there. And then there are 2 external services. There's the Auth service, which handles all of the authorization decisions, and so we're going to be configuring this here momentarily. And also the rate limiter service that we'll be talking about as well. And finally, a Redis backing store that supports the rate limiting service. You'll also see here we're going to be leveraging the Istio Ingress gateway, which is itself an Envoy proxy, and so we'll be configuring that proxy and having it delegate off to these external services that are part of the dev portal. Okay. So now let's curl the pet store interface that's out there, and what we will see is that it works. We get back our 2 pets we have in our database here. We have a dog and a cat, and as you can see, we're hitting this service anonymously, right? And we can do this as often as we want to. There are no restrictions on the interface. It's just sitting out there ready for us to hit. So what we want to do now is go back to the administrative interface, and we want to do a few things. First of all, let's associate our portal with the pet store API that we want to publish. So we'll go to this tab, we'll add an API product, and there's only one at this point for us to choose from, so we'll select that and we'll add the API. So now the portal knows which API to publish. Second, we're going to establish a usage plan that will allow access to the API. And so let's go to the API product, and we will check out the plans here. You can see we don't have anything active at this point, and let's just create something that whoever has access to this plan, let's call it the unlimited plan. Whoever has access to it can basically just, they can just pound on this interface as much as they want to, okay? So we will create that usage plan, and now we need to define some users and bind that plan to them. So let's go to access control. We will create a user, and we'll just call it user 1. give it a super sophisticated password. We will not assign it to a group at this point. We'll come back to that shortly. But we will assign this, this API to it. We will also assign it the unlimited plan that we defined. And we will associate the user with this portal, okay? So we'll create that user. You can see it shows up, and now that we have a usage plan and we've activated that, if we go back here and we try to hit it anonymously again, it's like, nope, it's not going to let that happen. So we turn on some verbosity, and you can see that in fact we're getting an unauthorized 401 unauthorized error because there's now a usage plan that's activated, has a user associated with it, and so anonymous access is no longer allowed. Okay, so let's go and take a first look at the portal and see if we can use this user to actually access the portal. So let's take a look at our portal interface, and let's log in as our user. And we need to change our password. So we're now logged in as user 1. We can take a look at the APIs, and you can see here's the pet store product. It is available to our user, and if we try to access this right now without authorizing, we're going to get a 401 unauthorized, just like we did with anonymous access. So what we need to do for our user then is to provision an API key that user can use to access the interface. Okay, so let's take a look at that, and we will add an API key for our user. We'll copy that. We can go back to our little sandbox now, and we will authorize our user. Once we do that, we can hit this same endpoint, and you can see we're now getting the full our full database back here, dogs and cats, and we got a 200 code as expected. And because this is an unlimited interface or an unlimited usage plan, we can go hit this as often as we want to, as long as we provide our API key. So you can see no restrictions there. Okay, well, so let's say this introduces a couple of problems for us with our system here. So the first problem is, let's say we have too much load on our system. So some of these external developers, like user 1 here, they're banging on this expensive interface that goes and dumps our whole database. And so there are certain users that we need to restrict to lower request levels. Okay, so basically a rate limiting use case. And second, we want to limit the administrative burden associated with onboarding new users. We don't want to have to provision detailed permissions every time we create a new user. What we'd like to do is establish user groups instead and assign permissions at that level. So for a new user, we simply add them to the appropriate group, and then based on its group membership, we can delegate authorization decisions to the external auth server, which then understands how to make decisions based on both individual users or group membership. Okay, so to address both of those problems, we're going to establish a new usage plan that limits the request volume to our API product, and we'll create a user with no direct privileges, and then finally we'll create a group and assign the privileges to the group and see how that works out. So let's go back to our admin UI. We'll go to our API product, and in that API product we're going to create a new plan, and we're going to call this plan the limited plan, and let's restrict that to something much less, like let's say 3 requests per minute. And so now that usage plan is available. You can see there are no users or groups associated with that at this point. And so let's go and create that. So we will create a new user. We will call this user user2. Let's see, yep, that password should work. And we won't assign to a group at this point because we don't have any. We also, we're not going to give it access to the API directly. Again, we're going to handle that through group membership. And so let's create this user. And now we're going to create a group. Let's call this group 1. And we'll call this the don't kill the system group. And then we'll assign a user to that group. And then we'll, at the group level, we'll assign the API, we'll assign the limited usage plan, and we'll also associate it with this portal, okay? So once we create that group, then we should be ready to go. So let's go back to the portal. Again, we're changing hats here. We have our administrator hat on at the moment. Now we're going to go back to our user hat. And so let's log out of user 1. And we're going to log back in with our new user 2. And once we've done that, we can go take a look at the APIs allocated to user 2. And it looks just like it did before. So let's go, and as we did with the first user, we will add an API key. We will copy that. And we'll go back to our sandbox. We'll authorize. And then when we try out this interface, what we'll see is that it works just like expected. Okay, now one key difference, because this user is a part of this new group that we created that only has limited request access to the API. So it can only, this user or any user in this group can only hit this API 3 times per minute. And then we should, after that, we should see some kind of error. So let's go back over here to our terminal and let's try that out. So we have our user2 API key. We can hit it a couple times. Whoop, something happened there. The 4th time didn't work. And so let's take a look. If we use our verbose option, you can see that we get a 429 error that there were too many requests. You can also see this header in the response here that the envoy rate limited flag is set to true. So indeed we have set this up where we have both individual user privileges being validated by the external auth service as well as group privileges that are working in a similar way. All right. So what have we accomplished in this tutorial? Well, first we used the Istio dev portal to configure the Istio Ingress gateway to delegate auth decisions to our external auth server. Significantly, we did this using standard Kubernetes objects and storing them using standard Kubernetes persistence mechanisms. Note that we did not have to configure an external database to manage any of this. Second, we configured these auth and rate limiting policies external to the application itself. So our target pet store application that we're managing access to doesn't need to know anything about these policies that we've applied in this exercise. Third, we use the dev portal user and group abstractions to make it easier for administrators to efficiently manage these authorization policies. And finally, we produced a dynamically generated portal that allows external developers to provision their own API keys and also provides a sandbox to test them out. If you'd like more information on Istio Dev Portal, I invite you to check out this blog post from our CTO that goes into more of a technical deep dive on the Dev Portal. Also, we invite you to stop by our YouTube channel for a lot of fresh content that gets updated pretty frequently. And finally, if you have questions, feel free to join the discussion on the solo.io public Slack channel. Thank you all so much for your time today.